What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Gravity Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris. Thank you for choosing to tune in today. Hey, folks, we're keeping this conversation going down the tracks. How do we stay grounded in a world full of noise and chaos? I don't know about you, but I think there's a whole lot of noise and chaos in this world. There's a whole lot of things that can cause us to be concerned, that can create anxiety within us, that can really stir up some problems in our life. And some of those things really need our attention, but there's a lot of it that quite honestly, folks, we need to just like push out of our conscious mind. Stop caring about it. So that's what we're hoping to do here on the podcast. What are your foundations? What are the things that you should be thinking about? What are the things that you should put attention and energy to in your life to solve problems? And then what are the things that we should just forget about? That it's not worth our time or our energy or our health to get all caught up in it. And as we bring guests on, I'm hoping that whether you agree or disagree with the guest, I'm hoping it's creating a space for you to get curious. Get curious with who you are and what those guiding principles or those foundational truths are for you that help you stay grounded. Today's guest, Colleen Hilton, she has a background as a mental health professional, as a first responder spouse, and more recently, she started a company called Alli Connect, and it's leveraging technology to connect our first responders to resources to help us be stronger in our brains or to help us heal our brains when we have some problems. I'm probably not doing a great job of really describing it. She does a great job in the episode of telling us what Alli Connect is all about. So I'm excited for you to hear from Colleen. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about the nonprofit organization called Deliver Fund. I'm wearing the hat here on the YouTube version. You can see in the background a pretty wicked cool box that I got some merch delivered in. I had some Thrivers coffee, which is from Deliver Fund, along with a shirt and just some other cool stuff. Deliver Fund is using technology, much like Colleen is using it to help our first responders. Well, Deliver Fund is using it to help our first responders in a different way. They're equipping first responders with intelligence of human traffickers. They're using like spy technology. They're using like what the CIA does to hunt down terrorists, but they're turning it towards the human trafficker. You've heard me talk about them before, folks, but I mean, our law enforcement community needs help in this regard because they don't have enough money or resources to have that kind of technology. And Deliver Fund is dishing it up, delivering it to law enforcement completely free. Completely free. They feed the intelligence and the information to law enforcement and prosecutors so that we can arrest truly bad human beings. Folks, if you haven't checked them out before, please check out deliverfund.org. The link will be down in the show notes. With that, folks, let's get into this interview with Colleen Hilton. Colleen Hilton, welcome to the Gravity Podcast.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
I am too. We don't know each other, but one thing I know about you is you're a patient person, because you and I started talking almost a year ago on LinkedIn, and it has taken this long for us to be able to connect schedules. So I just really appreciate your patience.
I appreciate that. Probably less patient, more persistent, but we'll take it.
Persistence is good. I've learned that one in life as well. You have to, whether it's in business or for your own, whether it be with healthcare, you have to be your own advocate. Yes, you have to, because if you don't, other people are busy, and it's not that they have bad intention. At least I hope not.
No.
But it's easy for us to forget. And so, yes, persistence, I think, is a valuable lesson. We're going to sit there and hit like all the key points before we even get in the first 2 minutes. I mean, like,
we're just overachievers from the get-go. I love it.
Hey, Colleen, for people that don't know you, can you give the listeners a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, the quick intro elevator pitch is that I am professionally trained as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I came from a military family. I was married to an LAPD, then Seattle cop for about 15 years. And that really brought me into my passion for mental health for first responders. So I have spent my entire 20-year career here. And it actually leads me to where I am today as the founder and CEO of Alli Connect.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to get into that. So, did you meet your husband in LA? Was it up here in the Pacific Northwest where you guys met?
Yeah, no, we actually started in Southern California. We were both natives, and you will laugh, but we met originally when neither one of us were connected to the first responder community. We both worked at Disneyland,
Oh,
of all the
wow.
places. But he had aspirations in law enforcement, and that was part of his family background and my military background. And I already loved psychology. It just kind of seemed to come together serendipitously.
Yeah. So, did you live your entire childhood as a military, I don't want to say brat, but as a military dependent?
So it was my grandparents. So we were very much a part of it. My mom was a military brat,
Yeah.
but the pride and the legacy was a huge part of it. My grandfather was a colonel in the Air Force. My grandmother was a nurse. They met there. So it was just very much part of our family story. And the understanding that like this was a way to get yourself forward in life and all the wonderful benefits of being part of this community. So we were raised in it, if you will.
Yeah. When you first started getting into mental health as a profession, did you initially know that first responders and military type of folks were going to be your focus clients, or was it more broad when you were first getting into it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I first was attracted to psychology, I was just enamored with forensic psychology
Yeah.
and the trying to figure out why people do things the way they do, really criminal psychology, if I'm honest, the Hannibal Lecter kind of stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
what could compel someone to really be evil or do these things? How can you bring yourself to kill another human? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um, I very quickly learned that that's a very limited job market, maybe bad for the soul, candidly. So during my internship, I did an intern with the City of Orange Police Department and met an incredible mentor there who really introduced me to CISM and CISD. And at the time, my then fiance was joining LAPD Academy. And so I like to say that it kind of came together, but at the same time, once officers and firefighters found out that I was a soon-to-be spouse and a clinician, it just kind of gave me access to provide help in that community that doesn't always trust mental health providers. So I was
100%.
kind of like drawn in at that point as already past the blue curtain
Yeah.
kind of thing. So a little bit by serendipity, a little bit by kind of a pull into the
Yeah.
community.
No, and that curtain, I mean, the fact that you bring that up, I like that just because I think most people within the first responder worlds understand it. I don't think our friends outside of those careers totally understand it, or spouses maybe if they're getting into whether they're getting married to a police officer or whether their spouse is joining a police
Yep.
department. That is a real thing, and I love Dr. Shauna Springer talks about it in her book Warrior. Talks
Mhm.
about the tribe and the fact that you're either in or out,
Yes.
and there's really no in between.
No, but I think a lot of times we get bad rap in first responder communities for the curtain and for the very closed off community, but there's a lot of benefits to the tight knit, real family vibe that is a part of it. Because when you're in, like you are into a club, if you will, that is like no other and is
Yeah,
incredibly supportive. So it's a little bit of a paradox, right? The things that make it great and wonderful and supportive can also make it a little bit difficult to manage and exclusionary and maybe high risk if you feel like you're on the outs from that community.
yeah,
So, like everything in life, there's good and bad to everything. Nothing is
completely.
absolute.
So, California, what brought you to Washington State?
Yeah, honestly, cost of living. I know
House prices.
I should probably have a better answer to that. But at the time that we decided to make the move, both of us were young. We had then an infant and a second on the way, and we just couldn't sustain a lifestyle in Southern California and raise a family in the way that we wanted to. And so, not having family anywhere else in the United States, we made the bold move to kind of throw a dart at the map and follow follow where the job would take us, and it took us to Seattle.
I love it. Well, I started my career over there working for the Linwood Police Department and worked there for a couple years.
Very nice.
And we liked it, but I have two grandparents that are still alive over here in the Tri-Cities, and so a very similar thing in reference to where do we want to raise our kids, where are we going to have support, and that's what led us over here to Eastern Washington. So, I mean, this was pretty early on. I mean, and what I mean early on, I'm sorry, what year did you guys move to the Seattle area?
Yeah, so we landed here in Seattle in 2009. We were kind of going through recruit class at LAPD in 2004, 2005.
Yeah,
So they were under consent decree. We've done a consent decree here. Um, it's actually kind of an interesting thing. I look back now, as a licensed clinician, but all these things, and you think about, why is it so hard in first responder communities to stay married? Why are the divorce rates so high? And then you start to layer on like all the stressors. And, I think of in my case and my husband's at the time's case, we were kind of went from like a boiling pot to another boiling pot in terms of difficulties for officers.
yeah,
So it's an interesting time, I think, in the last 20 years, particularly for public safety officers and their families, and some of the unique challenges around community support or lack thereof, which is very different depending on what geography you're in.
yeah. Wow, Colleen, this is one of the things I love about the opportunity in this podcast is as I get to know people and listen, I'm just hearing all this perspective that you bring to the table. I
Thank you.
mean, being a clinician in family therapy, that's a perspective. You lived being a first responder spouse. You went through uh, a divorce, is what I'm hearing, right?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so you have these perspectives of I understand the life, I understand the cause. I not only because I have patients that trust me and tell me their story, but because I've lived some of these same challenges as well. What let's say you have these young, bright-eyed people in front of you. They're 22. She's getting ready to join the police department. He works at Boeing. They're just excited for life, right?
Hmm.
You know, what would you say to them? What would you say to them, right? Without dashing their dreams, what would you say that would be encouraging and also really, filled with wisdom?
Well, I'm not sure if it'd be filled with wisdom, but maybe my lived experience.
Yeah, yeah,
But genuinely, I believe this is some of the coolest work that a person can do. You think
yeah,
about the impacts that first responders have. I mean, I'm constantly in awe, both historically and to this day, first responders run towards everyone else's worst day.
yeah.
And you do it just because it's Tuesday. And you might even do it 9 to 11 times just because it's Tuesday. I literally read a statistic just yesterday, 600,000 calls for service a day nationwide.
Wow.
600,000. And you think about like what are behind those calls. I am not the person or the fiber, if you will, to do that, right? But the person who can show up non-judgmentally to effectively save the day, like that's incredible work. It's incredibly meaningful. I think the challenge is that it's messy, right?
Yeah,
We hope to go out and have this great impact, and not everybody says thank you, and not everybody maybe responds in the way that we hope them to. But to focus on the good. Like we find what we seek 100% of the time. So if you look for the things that are great and the ways that we make an impact, you will see that, and it feeds your purpose. And if you look for the ways the system is broken, you will see that, and it will make it harder. But it's just such incredible work, and I'm constantly in awe.
what the word that popped out as you were saying that was gratitude,
Mhm.
right? And it's not just gratitude. That's not, but a piece of that I've heard you saying was gratitude, being grateful for where we're at and the opportunities that we have and whatnot.
Yeah, which, clinically it seems so simple, but that is the antidote to so many forms of mental health struggle, depression, anxiety, just being able to ground in the things that are really meaningful, in the ways that we are grateful for all the things, right? The good, the bad, the in between. I mean, that's the key to so much around wellness, resilience, all the things that we talk about right now in first responder communities.
Being grateful for the bad. That's a tough one for some folks.
Mm.
What do you mean by that?
Did you watch the movie Inside Out?
Oh, yes.
I love it. This is where I'm going to geek out as a therapist for a second. And I have kids, they're now teenagers. But that is one of my favorite movies because they did such an excellent job truly taking the neurobiology and the science of psychology. And at the end, when we see the core memory and we find that it can't all be happy, right? There is probably a precipitating event or something that was really painful and horrible, but it allows us to grow through it. It gives us perspective on what is great and wonderful and on the connections that little Riley has with her parents.
Yeah.
And you can't have those beautiful events if you don't have the tough ones.
Yeah.
So it's all about balance and focus.
Do you have a background in internal family systems by chance as a therapy modality?
I do not. I am a Bowenian therapist. My focus in couples work was actually infidelity recovery. I have enough to be dangerous on IFS.
Sounds like the same as me. Uh, I ask only because this last summer I went to a PTSD recovery center, and that was one of the modalities that they used, and I warred against it. I fought against it. It was not consistent with my faith, and then it all of a sudden, probably around like day 17 or 18, it just clicked, and I'm still doing it now. I'm still using that when I'm by myself, not necessarily with a clinician. Although I am interested because there's deeper levels that I haven't gotten to. The unblending of your parts that I haven't actually gotten to. But
Uh-huh.
anyhow, yeah, I'm Inside Out, great book, or I'm sorry, great movie that talks about a few different layers. One of them being the internal family systems piece as well. So
Yeah, it's that, taking things in parts and as a whole, I think. And, going back to the connection to first responders, there are a lot of things that first responders do in their job that is incredibly powerful and important in
yeah,
order to do that work. Compartmentalizing, tunnel vision, those types of things. We have to do those things to be able to get through the call and get through the shift. But it also has to be untangled. Because if we get stuck in those patterns, we start to miss out on the full spectrum of life and experience, that, tracking it all back allows us to feel connected with our communities, with our partners, with our families, and really enjoy life.
yeah. So here's the deal, and this has been something that I mean, I've been married for almost 26 years, and it's been something that my wife and I talk about a lot. Infidelity doesn't just happen. We don't just fall into it. There's causations, and it's not to make excuses. Like I got to own my own behavior, right? As a person, my wife has to own her own behavior. But there are things that make us more susceptible to these to affairs, to infidelity. What, from your clinical experience, what are some of the things that make this more of a struggle for first responders? That make us more susceptible to being in that situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. A little complicated because it's different for every person and every couple, of
Totally.
course, right?
Yeah.
And I think particularly in first responder communities, when we talk about infidelity, we're not even talking about having a affair with another person. A lot of people have affairs with the job or with the
Oh yeah.
gym or with hobbies, or we can have an affair, if you will, with anything that kind of we use to diffuse tension in our
Yeah.
marriage or our relationship, right? So if I feel
Alcohol.
tension, yes, alcohol. If I feel
Yeah.
tension with my partner and I don't want to address it, how am I going to burn off that tension with this kind of third thing? Sometimes it's a person.
Yeah.
I would actually venture to guess that it's not typically a person. It's
Oh,
often
when you paint it
something
like that,
else.
I guarantee almost all of us on some level, instead of engaging in the conflict and trying to work through it for the relationship, we do all of the things that you just suggested. I mean,
Yeah,
I say
we
we do all of them.
displace.
Not
Well,
all of
we
us do
do.
all of them,
Well,
but
so what we do,
yeah,
and there's in small amounts, it's healthy, right? You can't put everything on your partner. You, of
true.
course, have to have friends that you can also confide in.
Yeah,
And of course, you need hobbies that you're passionate about, whether or not it involves your partner.
yeah,
It's, everything in moderation kind of a thing. It's when that third thing and that, or that third person starts to take up so much space that it degrades the relationship that we have with our partner. And they start to come in between, that it becomes really dangerous. But when I think about, how does it all start? Because you're right, it doesn't happen overnight. It's almost like it's in these tiny little increments, and then all of a sudden, and we
yeah,
look back and go, "Oh shoot, how did I get here?"
yeah.
Right? Um, and it really comes down to unmet and candidly, usually unexpressed needs, right? If
Mm,
I need connection, if I feel like I'm not getting enough attention, not having enough fun with my partner or whatever it is, I seek that thing out somewhere else.
yeah,
And again, in small doses, maybe it's okay. But when we are not doing that thing or not getting that in our relationship at all, and we can't express it and we can't talk about it, um, then it becomes secretive and, starts to create that tension. So,
completely. Yes. A couple beers on a Friday night, I would argue there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
mhm.
if you want to enjoy a couple beers or a mixed drink on a Friday night, do it. And when my wife came to me last summer and said, "Hey, do you think you should give alcohol a break?" And I looked at her and said, "Do you want to be my mom or my wife?" Right? I
Right.
just sat there and said, the person I trust most in this world, because she truly is, I trust her more than any other person. And I pretty much told her to shut up. I mean, for lack of a better, and and at first it didn't start as a bad thing. Actually, it started as her and I having a drink together because we weren't
Yeah.
drinkers. We didn't grow up in high school drinking. We didn't do it in college.
Hmm.
As young adults, we were young airmen in the Air Force. We couldn't afford it, right? I mean, like
Right.
we don't even drinking soda because we're so
Right. You're
poor.
going water because it's
Right?
free.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, just that slow fade of some things like going to the gym. Going to the gym's a good thing. It's
Mhm.
actually contributes to your physical health, your mental health. But now you're neglecting your spouse, your partner, your kids,
Yeah.
whatever it is, because you're so hyper focused on the gym. That's what I hear you saying is where it becomes an act of infidelity in a way. You're
Yeah.
violating the marriage relationship.
You are. You're violating the promises that you made to your partner, whether it's to be supportive, to be present, to provide finances. I mean, there's a million and a half different ways that we can unfortunately violate, the kind of the expectations or the agreements that we made in relationships. And it's when we can't talk about them, when we get, I don't like to use the word defensive. I prefer protective, because in your example, when your wife comes to you and you say, like, do you want to be my mom or do you want to be my spouse? You're really just protecting yourself from having to face what she's just told you.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
as
the
a
anxiety, right? Because that's what it's
Mhm.
doing. It's helping keep that anxiety at bay, or
Yeah,
at least in the moment it is.
right, temporarily.
The
Yeah,
compounding effect of it robbing me of REM sleep and doing, you know what I'm saying? And it's actually making it worse long term.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yeah,
And these things, they creep up on you. Like you said, nobody intends for it to happen. I have never met, over meeting thousands of people, somebody who says, I walked out the front door that night intending to have an affair. It's not how it happens. It's not malicious.
yeah.
In whether it's the gym or a person, there's a space, and then we start to fill it with maybe not the right things.
When first responders find problems in their relationships, obviously having someone who's trained as a mental health professional to walk with them, almost be a coach, to
Mhm.
coach them through this relationship challenge. What is usually like the common start point? Like once the issues have been identified, I'm assuming like is it usually like communication? I think you said that a little bit ago. Unspoken needs or unmet needs. Is that a good starting point for a lot of relationships?
Yeah, again, I wish there was like a blanket way to do this. I think this is why mental health practice as a practitioner is so nuanced. And it's really important to find somebody really good and specialized, because there's no one size fits all
Yeah.
solution. It depends on how long these things have gone on. What is the state of the relationship at that moment, right? Is your partner leaning out? Have they already left? Like, when are we ready to do the work?
Yeah.
The first responders as a population, and this is a generalization, they are so resilient. I know there's a conversation that we should be more resilient, but first responders are inherently really tough, resilient individuals,
Yeah.
um, which means that they wait until stuff's pretty bad before they ask for help or they
Yes.
acknowledge that they need something. So, your lay person might be over here on the spectrum, like, well, it's gotten here, I got to do something. A first responder is going to wait here. Um, so it really depends on kind of where they're at and how do we lean in and how much are they willing to do and how much is their partner willing to do to kind of put things back together. Um, I got to tell you though, like when there is infidelity of any kind and both partners lean in, like I see the most incredible relationships on the other side.
Wow.
It's almost like a cancer in the relationship. Nobody would ever wish cancer on a person, but
Yeah.
cancer survivors are just these amazing people full of like light and energy and gratitude and zeal for life.
Yeah.
Same thing when you see a marriage that has struggled with some sort of infidelity, when partners both lean in towards each other and do the work, they build a relationship on the backside of that that is so much better than anything they could have even had before because they've done this together and they've walked through the hard times and they know they can trust their partner, they know they can do hard things. It's really incredible. I mean, that's part of my passion for that work, because a lot of marriages don't make it. But
Yeah.
the ones that do, I'm literally in awe of those couples and how amazing of a relationship they get on the backside of it.
I love that you shared that. I think that gives people hope, right? Because when you're in the trenches of it, you can't see your way out, and
No.
you're in crisis mode. And but when you hear, I mean, I experienced something similar with post-traumatic stress injury. It's the stories of the people that have done the hard work, that have gotten through it, saying, "Hey, this sucks, and I've
Mhm.
been there. It's going to continue to hurt for a while." And I'm doing so much better now. I
Yeah.
had to do a lot of hard work. Here's some recommendations of where to go to start doing the hard work. But I'm just telling you, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a big train. So, no, I love the hope that you just communicated, because I think if couples are in some type of relationship tension, even if it's just tension, hearing, hey, working through this is going to make us stronger on the other side is really encouraging.
Yeah.
So you've done other things in your career. I mean, yes, you've been a clinician. You also have taught at university, yes.
Have,
And
yes.
what was your passion in teaching at the university level?
So you're gonna laugh. The classes I loved to teach were law and ethics, and mostly because there was no hard and fast answer. The answer was always it depends to everything. It was always circumstantial. And so many clinicians, we go to grad school and we seek answers. Just tell me how to do it. Tell me how to help people.
Yes,
Tell
yes,
me, tell me what the right answer is. What is the right coping skill I should share with somebody? And everything around our ethics is it depends. And what's in the client's best interest? And how are you going to move them forward? And so it really challenges clinicians to think differently. And I love that. I guess I've always, for better or for worse, I like the complicated stuff.
yeah. I like that though. I sat there and thought about it because, man, I've asked you a few questions here that I'm almost seeking, like, give us the 3 points, like, give us the
Oh,
easy way to do this, right?
I
And
wish.
you haven't answered any of it that way. But then I think about myself as the client or the patient. I don't like the medical professionals that treat me that way. Well,
Mm,
here's the 3 things. No, I like it when they do say, well, it does depend. Let's talk more. And they have to get to know me and my symptoms, and whether it be high cholesterol, whether it be post-traumatic stress injury, regardless of what it is, I appreciate the medical professionals that is their answer. It depends. And then we have to do some work back and forth to figure out what the right therapy, the right fix is.
Well, and I think you nailed it kind of midway through your own answer that we have to find the right person who is genuinely curious about us as an individual.
Yes.
Because regardless of the type of provider you're looking for, none of us fits a label, if you will, of police officer, firefighter, dispatcher, EMS personnel, like we are all individuals inside of that.
Yeah.
So I know there's an importance and there's a significance to finding a professional who, has the right specialization for your challenge and who may have cultural competency in working with people from your profession. But really, the magic in finding help is finding somebody that you as a human can trust and build a relationship with and who is genuinely curious about helping.
Yeah, I was just talking with, well, actually, I think by now it's been about 6 months. One of my friends who's a mental health professional here in the Tri-City area, and he said almost the exact same thing because I was
Mhm.
asking him about modalities and these things. He goes, Chris, honestly, it's like 80% you trust in the other person and
Yep.
20% modality. Like if you, and they need to be competent, yes. But
Yes.
if you trust them and you're actually going to tell them, because here's the deal, you can't, although there are ways to scan the brain and actually, see injury and, changes in the brain and everything, you're depending on me actually telling you what's going on.
Yes.
Do you have a plan to hurt yourself or to kill yourself? Nope. Well, that doesn't help if I'm lying, right? Because you can't help me with that if I'm not trusting you to know what's going on inside my mind.
Yeah, clinically or as therapists, we call that the therapeutic alliance.
Yeah.
Can you build a relationship of trust and safety in the space so that the client will connect with you, and vice versa? It's a two-way street. It's admittedly uneven, right, because of the type of relationship, but genuine nonetheless. And my experience as a clinician with first responders is that trust is the biggest challenge to first responders getting the right help.
Yeah.
Because they go in and they meet with a therapist, and if they don't click in that first session, it's like, fuck it, I'm out. And
Yeah.
they don't go, they don't go back.
Yep.
One bad experience and done until the
All,
next crisis.
all mental health professionals are like this one individual I didn't connect with, right?
Right. Yes. So the whole thing is crap and it's not going to work. I'm out, kind of
Yep.
a thing. But it's finding your person, right?
Yep.
And you can test the waters. All clients do. Throw a few comments out, see if it ruffles some feathers, see if this person is going to be able to respond the way you need them to. But the magic is finding the right person, and it's easier to do than it used to be. But I wouldn't get hung up on, what acronym they have behind their name, or is it telehealth or in person, where they went to school. As long as they're competent, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
it's the person, not the modality,
Yeah.
where the magic happens.
Well, and I even did some really successful EMDR work over the computer like this.
Yep.
It was with sound.
Mhm.
Sound was what the stimulus they were using as a part of it, and I was able to clear some traumas that were really bothering me. It was almost a year ago now, and so yeah, I love actually the ability, even though I think there's some value in being in person, especially if that's what the person really prefers. But if you live in the greater Seattle area and you have the option to not fight 45 minutes of traffic, both, one way and then 45 minutes back home.
Bag.
And you're sitting in a safe place for yourself, a home office, a living room, wherever, and you're able to pull up your phone and have a conversation with the person. I just see a lot of value in that. It's, I think, removing some obstacles for us.
Well, I love that you had that experience with EMDR. I know a lot of people are hesitant to do EMDR in the first place, let
Yeah.
alone over a telehealth platform. But the research shows that it's literally as effective given the right provider.
Yeah.
And this kind of modality allows us to find that right person. I think about people who are part of rural communities. What if locally you have 5 therapists to choose from and you don't like any of them?
Exactly.
Right? If you can use something like Zoom to connect with the absolute right provider for you, and they happen to be in Spokane, that's great. And that's much more valuable than sitting in the room with a therapist that you don't like and you don't trust.
And you're not going to tell the truth to.
And you're not going to tell the truth
Yeah.
to.
It's
Yeah,
not working. It's not working. Well,
you're right. It's not working.
yeah.
What are we going to do differently?
Yeah, totally. Hey, you didn't just stick with that. I mean, yes, you've been a mental health professional, you've been a university professor. Tell us about Alli Connect. Tell us about this new venture that you're on and how it's helping our first responder world.
Thank you. I love it. I work way too many hours and I stay up way too late at night because I'm so passionate about it. And it really dovetails nicely from the conversation we were just having. Um, I believe really, really strongly that it is that fit between clients and clinicians that is the magic to therapy. And it can be incredibly hard to find a therapist, let alone the right therapist.
Been there.
Yeah, you're right. We've all been there. I've been there. But it doesn't have to be, I guess, is my premise. So Alli Connect really uses technology and really cool components of AI and machine learning fused with all the research of psychology and previous experience to help people triangulate that right provider the first time,
Mm.
understanding kind of what their clinical factors are as well as their human factors, and then understanding what you or I might want as a client. We can produce results in seconds as opposed to 200 phone calls. Nobody calls you back. You take the first appointment with somebody who's available next Thursday at 10 a.m. and it turns out, they're not the right fit, so you give up.
Yeah.
So our entire premise at Alli Connect is around what we call early detection, intervention, and connection to care. I want first responders in therapy, or at least having a therapist on day one, before the shit
Yes.
hits the fan, build a
Yes.
relationship, have that person on speed dial
Mm-hmm.
when the shit hits the fan, right?
Yep.
And so we use technology to build tools that help first responders identify when they might be going down a path of needing help. So we're not waiting so long to get
Yeah.
that help, and then actually helping them get to that right person, so that they're not just being identified and then being told, figure it out, right? I see that a lot, right? There's either a critical incident and everybody says, well, you need to go find a therapist. Well, it's fucking hard to find a therapist when you're in the middle of crisis.
Yes.
It's kind of hard when you're doing well. So it's really hard when you're in crisis. Um, or we identify somebody who may be struggling, right? A peer support member says, hey, I see that you're late. I see that, you might be drinking too much. And then they say, you should go find a therapist. And that's the end of it. And again, we've left somebody to try to navigate it on their own. So as a core belief, I believe technology can support the connective relationships. It's never going to replace therapy. Not a huge fan of all the fake therapist bots and things like that with AI.
I haven't even heard about that.
Oh, that's a whole different episode, Chris. Uh,
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's we'll
but
put a pin in that one. We'll put a pin in
yeah,
that one.
but the idea that we can use technology to make it easier to identify people earlier in their journey and then help them get to care so that they don't have to go to residential treatment,
Yeah.
or they don't lose their career, they don't lose their marriages. Like
Yeah.
let's stop reacting to crisis and let's start supporting the resilience of these incredibly strong people from day one. Our
And that's
whole
one of the concerns I've been hearing from human resources. And I was just in a conversation with a municipal government agency here in Washington State yesterday,
premise.
and there's concern about some of these inpatient facilities because the number of police and firefighters that are returning to work is a low percentage.
Yeah.
And the analogy that I keep coming back to, because again, I was there. I checked myself into that place. And so and while I was there, I never felt at any point that I was being deterred from returning to work. Like that was not the goal. The goal was for me to get better, for me to
Right.
heal. That was the only goal. They didn't care whether I went back to work or whether I didn't go back to work. It was just we want you to be well. Um, but the analogy that I keep giving is, hey, here's the deal. If you drive a Ford Escort and you never change its oil, and after 4 years the engine blows up, and you take it to your local mechanic, and he goes, hey, here's the deal, it's totaled. Like I can't even fix it. It's not worth what it's going to cost.
Yep.
And you're like, screw it. You go buy a new Ford Escort. You do the exact same thing again. And again, the engine blows up after 4 years. You take it back to the same mechanic, and he's like, yeah, I can't. And now you're frustrated at your mechanic because he can't ever fix your stuff. He keeps telling you it's totaled. Don't be frustrated with your mechanic. Change the way you're driving your car. We
Mm-hmm.
can't get frustrated with therapy centers that are trying to treat our folks for having a low return to work rate when we continue to approach mental health, physical, or yeah, tied together, mental and physical health, the same way
Yeah.
that we did back in 1980. We have
Mm-hmm.
to do something different here. And I love what you said. When I first became a cop, they told me day one, you need to know the name of an attorney. Because when you have a critical incident, that's not the time for you to be asking, who should I hire?
Yep.
You need to know that ahead of time. Well, this is what I'm saying. Know the name of an attorney and have an established relationship with a mental health professional. You,
Absolutely.
you need that.
Yeah, no, and I love your car analogy because that is so true. And I think about, even the way municipalities think about the retention and the recruitment crisis that we have right now, right?
Yeah.
We're throwing tons of money to try to get people to come in the front door. And I immediately go, what investments are we making in the people who are here, who are working
Yes.
mandatory overtime, who
Yes.
are just working so hard and they're responding to more calls than ever, right? We will outfit an officer, for example, in the coolest technology and gear ever, right?
It
Like,
is.
well, let's go with the ballistic vest. This is my example. We spend thousands of dollars on ballistic vests, and they are replaced every 5 years, regardless of if a bullet has ever hit it, right?
Yes. Hmm.
No municipality questions the line item on the budget for ballistic vests. This
Nope.
is something we do to keep an officer physically safe. We hope it never gets used.
Yes.
The proportional amount of investment that goes into officer wellness. I mean, if the budget exists, it is a fraction of that. But if the person inside the vest isn't whole and healthy, they make poorer decisions in the field. They are less able to serve their community. They will not be retained. They will burn out. They will suffer injury. We're making huge investments in incredibly high performers. We have to make an investment in the maintenance
Yeah.
of those individuals so that they can get to the other side of their career, and we'll get better work, if you will, or service out of them in the meantime. So it's a soapbox, and it's a whole shift that I have around this, that like I really wish that we were investing in officer wellness and firefighter wellness the way that we invest in equipment. Because I think that the most important equipment or the most valuable asset to any department is truly the people.
Yeah.
So we have to be investing there.
And military special forces really have, from what I'm hearing, listening to other podcasts, are there now. They are looking at the brain as the most important piece of the warfighter. We need to keep this brain fully operational and operating at its best potential. And they recognize the impact that the job has on it. And so I'm hoping, just due to the quantity of conversation that's taking place. I'm hoping that we're going to get there, but I think we still have a long ways to go.
We do, but we at least are seeing what I'm going to call really influential leaders, particularly in our conversations with partnering agencies and whatnot,
Yeah.
who get it.
Yeah.
And they're making the investments and they're truly dedicated to their teams. I think like a chief's chief, right?
Yeah.
Or an officer's chief, where like they're in it for their people.
Yep.
And it just takes a few of those trailblazers uh, to kind of say it's okay. And I know that mental health and wellness is also a stigmatized topic, so there's extra barriers there. But we're seeing really influential people stand up, raise a hand, say, hey, I experienced this trouble, or hey, I knew this person, or we lost this person to suicide. Like, we have to do things differently. We'll get there for sure. And it's exciting to see a shift, because certainly 20 years ago, when I started in this industry, the suck it up buttercup mentality was alive and well.
Yeah.
And it's definitely dying off, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. It's definitely less than what it was before. So how does Ally Connect do this? Yeah, one of the things I found interesting, I can't remember the first D word you used, whether it was detect or not. So
Yep.
if I'm okay,
Yes,
so
detection.
how is that? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, so we have a platform technology. We partner at the department level as kind of a confidential third party for officers, their families, and the retirees. Because I'm a big believer that we can't just like let somebody off to retirement and then like good luck to you.
Yeah.
Um, but there's all sorts of tools inside the technology platform. There are wellness assessments that individuals can take confidentially for themselves. Peer support teams can deploy different levels of wellness checks. We even have a suicide risk assessment that can identify somebody who might be at risk of completing suicide in the next 72 hours,
Yeah.
which is really exciting. Um, we have tools for peer support teams to better manage their teams, and kind of, you have a critical incident. I want to make sure that I check in on Colleen, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months following the event, not
Hmm.
just at a critical incident. And then the connection to our network of therapists, which is nationwide and all vetted by our team internally. So we're really trying to create a solution that is private and confidential for first responders and their families and is seamless. I want I want no barriers to entry, right?
Yeah.
And we go back to that trust in therapy, that's a key component to success of a wellness program with first responders and within a department. You
Yeah.
know, people have to know that they can use it, that it's not going to have a negative impact on their career. It's not going to go to leadership. And that's where Alli Connect can hold this really unique space in the sense that the agency pays for our product, but we don't share any data back that could ever identify a single individual to the leadership so that people know that they have a confidential way to get help.
Yeah. Before you and I scheduled this podcast, I reached out to one of your clients
Mhm.
and I just asked them the question that I think would be on a lot of people's minds right now if they're listening to the podcast. We already have the Cortico app, and so I reached out to one of the chiefs that you contract with, and I asked him, is this even worth me scheduling a podcast interview? And he goes, "Yeah, I think so, Chris. We use both, and it's not the exact same thing. There's differences here, and we really saw it as the opportunity to offer our folks a couple different types of products. So tell us the difference, because in my mind, again, that's where I started with. Well, the state's already paying for Cortico, so why are we trying to buy something new? So to talk about the differences, I already heard some, but I wanted to hear it from you. What are the differences between Alli Connect and Cortico?
Yeah, so a lot of things your experience is often, right? Is often the case. Oh, it looks like it's just an app, right? And we're both apps, and that's a great user interface for a lot of people these days, right? Super convenient. Um, the main difference between ours is everything in our platform is AI driven. So it's smart, if you will. Based on the things that you tell us, we produce recommendations and personalized manners. So I'm not just feeding you a meditation exercise because it's May and mental health awareness month. I'm
Yeah,
feeding it to you because something that you've done in the technology actually leads us to believe that this could be beneficial for you. The other thing is our network of therapists. That's hugely unique. The connection technology, really just the fact that everything is, I'm going to say, data driven in the background, right? We're
yeah,
taking all the information from an agency and we're saying, what can we learn about this information? It's not just can we give you a resource, but can we actually help provide a more predictive and proactive approach to the department? Can we go back to the peer support leader and say, hey, you know how you told me at the beginning that substance use was your guys' biggest challenge? Based on what we're seeing, it's actually relationship distress. So, how do we build some programs for your department that address relationship distress? And that might change, right? As a department experiences different challenges and critical incidents, the needs of that department is going to change. But with our technology, we can help them be ahead of that and build programs that are really specific to their agency.
yeah,
Um, and the last thing is that we backstop everything with our team. So all the technology is supervised. If you were in the platform and there was an indication that you might be in distress, somebody on our team gets flagged. And our customer success individuals are all former first responders, most of
yeah,
whom have taken a path into mental health professions. So we can actually reach out to those individuals again from somebody behind the curtain. They
yeah.
understand, but they also have a clinical lens to say, hey, we saw something and we just want to make sure you're okay. And what can we do to help? So the goal is that it is truly technology that elevates connection so that we're making the most out of this community.
Yeah, and that was really powerful. Just everything you described there, because my experience I've had, and I'm not bad mouthing Cortico because I think it is
Mm,
a good resource. But the list of therapists, I've had people reach out to me because I'm pretty outspoken with my story, and so I'll get on the Cortico app, which I have access to as a retiree, and
mm,
I'll start grabbing some names, but a lot of those therapists are not accepting patients.
right.
And then I'll read some of the bios and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that person's going to be a good fit for this person. So they've been vetted, which is fine. I'm sure they might be a
Right.
good fit for some people, but for the person who's reaching out to me, I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to push, this officer, this firefighter to that person.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge that I see is it's a little bit more like a bulletin board, and bulletin boards are fine.
Mhm.
But I recently listened to a podcast on the Harvard Business Review, and it's just talking about AI technology and the fact that, folks, it's here. And let's as businesses, as corporations, I would say as government organizations, let's figure out how to use this stuff and leverage it so that we can do more, so that we can be better at what we do, um, because it's here and it's some really great technology.
Well, and we can prevent all the misses that happen right now, right? You don't have to call 200 people and you don't have to try to figure out who has availability. Um, to your point, bulletin boards lists, these are all great. And lots of organizations are putting out first responder lists of vetted clinicians. You know, FOP has one, like everybody's got one, right?
Yeah.
But it puts all the work on the individual who needs help to try to figure out who is correct for them. If we use AI, the AI can take kind of all these networks and all this information and process recommendations faster than either you or I can do. And so far from what we've seen, do it better. So just as a broad brushstroke, there's about a 19% chance that if you reach out to a therapist based on traditional trial and error methodology, that you'll find the right therapist the first time. 19%, right?
Mm.
I mean, if that was like a fatality or a success rate after a heart attack, it would be a national crisis,
That's
right?
not even good in baseball.
No, it's
Batting
bad.
batting
It's bad.
a 100 or barely a 200.
Right? Like if there was an 80% chance you were going to hit by a rock when you walked out the front door, you would never leave the house. But we would go and we'd meet with this person and we divulge our most intimate secrets to this person. And there's an 80% chance that it's the right person or an
Oh,
80% chance that it's going to fail.
yeah.
With our technology, we actually have an 88% success rate
Oh,
in
wow.
connecting people to the right therapist the first time. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's perfect.
No.
We always aspire for perfect. It's why we have a team of humans backstopping it, because sometimes the tech doesn't get it right,
Yeah.
right? But we don't want anybody slipping through the cracks. I mean, this is literally life and death. I go back to, the moment that first responders ask for help because they are so tough and they are so resilient. It is so important that we get it right. Like there isn't a margin for error. So to your point, if we can use technology to make that a faster connection, a more accurate connection, like everybody wins.
Yeah. So if chiefs, sheriffs, if HR directors are listening to this and they're like, I want to learn more, like what's the best way? I mean, obviously they can get like they can search Ally, spelled Alli, Alli, Connect. They can search that on Google and find your website. Is that
Yeah.
really the best place? Is there what's the way for them to maybe connect with one of your, I don't know the titles, whether it's a sales rep or, yeah, fill us in on how people can learn more about this.
Yeah, the website is always a great place to start, but candidly, we are a small mission-driven team. There's 10 of us full-time on the project. We are all very loud and outspoken on LinkedIn, and I even have a TikTok account. It's fairly terrifying.
God bless you.
Um, I know, we all make mistakes, right? Um, but like we love these conversations, and we're always excited to talk to people, and even if it's just to answer questions or to help, right? We've seen some tragedy recently. Charlotte had the shooting with marshals and whatnot, and we lost officers. Like those are the moments that we want to be able to offer support, and at least point people in the right direction. So website, LinkedIn, lots of social media, but we're also pretty out in the community. We'll be at IACP in Boston coming up. So flag us down. We'll buy a beer. We'll sit down.
Like it. Well, hold on a second. Just because with the power of
Oh no.
my computer sitting in front of
Please
me.
don't look up the TikTok.
No, I'm not looking up the TikTok. Again, God bless you for having a TikTok. I had a TikTok. Here's the deal. I have three adult daughters. I was tired of seeing 22-year-old girls shake their booty on my TikTok. My wife showed me how to like click something to show less of this, and it showed a little bit less of this. But here's the deal. TikTok knew I was a guy, so they were like,
You
nope,
were toast.
you like it. We're going to keep showing it to you. And it's like,
Okay.
I feel like a dirty man is what I feel like. So
So
stop.
that is the example of AI for bad. Lots of wonderful ways to use AI for good.
So what I do is I pulled up your website.
Mhm.
And so from here, I'm just I mean, I'm literally wanting to talk through this. It looks like you can book a demo. So if you're wanting
Yep.
to, hey, I want to see, I don't want to have any obligation, but I do want to see how this might be able to work for our organization. It looks like there's a video.
Yep.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then it looks like it's pretty smooth interface talking about some of the different divisions from law enforcement to dispatch. Some of our forgottens, I would say. Our
Yes.
dispatchers do such a good job here in the Tri-City area. I went and did a cancer like benefit run here a weekend or two ago, and I saw a couple dispatchers. It was fun to catch up with them, and they told me right now they're working a 13 and 1,
See?
13 12-hour shifts, 1 day off. 13 12-hour shifts,
That's insane.
1 day off, and they've been doing this for years.
But that's insane. I mean, humanistically, how can you manage that level of fatigue? And then I go on, dispatchers I have so much respect for because they're taking the first snippet crisis and they never get resolution. I mean, and
Yeah,
the volume of calls that they're taking, it's insane. But yes, so there's a ton of first responders that are what I'd say forgotten in plain sight, unfortunately.
yeah.
But yeah, through the website, they can ask for a demo. Myself, Nathan, our head of growth, always happy to jump on calls and answer questions, no obligation. Like genuinely, we're here to help.
So I'm a total science nerd. I wasn't in school. I hated science. I took the required amount for me to get college degrees, right?
Hmm.
Not an extra one whatsoever. And now I find it fascinating here in my early retirement from law enforcement time, how much I'm enjoying science and in particular the impact of this job on our brain, the consequence on the rest of our body. Have you gotten into anything to do with sleep? This is the thing I'm fascinated with, and I did not prep you with this at all, so I apologize in
No,
advance.
you did not, but that's okay.
But I'm really fascinated with the impact of sleep on our body's ability to heal. In this case, from a mental injury. And I don't know, do you know any, have you geeked out on any of this research yourself?
So I intermittently geek out on sleep. And self-disclosure, sleep is a challenge for me. As an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, I work too many hours. Your brain's running at a million miles an hour. How do you turn it off? Right.
yeah,
All the research that I'm reading is it's scary and it's cool in the sense that we can track back so many illnesses, physical, mental, that are core to sleep. That if you can correct somebody's sleep pattern and you can get them not only better quality, but better quantity of sleep,
yeah,
the body can repair itself in so many cool ways. The converse of that, we're really understanding how impaired we are cognitively when we don't get adequate sleep. And I think about firefighters who the
yes,
tones go off in the middle of the night and they're getting 2 or 3 hours of wildly disrupted sleep. I mean, many of them are functioning at a cognitive level that is equal to alcohol intoxication.
yes,
And then we're asking them to go out and save people's lives and make medical decisions and all sorts of things. And I'm just sitting here going, wow, like the science around the impact for this, it has to change the industry. It has to change how we do things just because not only negatively impacts that first responder, but our entire community from a downstream effect there. So,
yeah,
I tell people, when they say like, well, I don't have a lot of time to go to therapy. I don't have a lot of time to do these things. I'm like, look, if you can do one thing, it's number one, sleep, and number two, food, right?
oh, Colleen,
Fuel your,
you just gave us a couple easy ones here. Here we go. And I agree with them though. Sleep has such a huge impact, right? And then how we're fueling our body.
yeah, those are the two things we literally fuel our body with, right?
Yeah.
The sleep that allows us to restore and heal, and the food that does the same. So if you're running off of caffeinated drinks, protein bars, and 2 hours of sleep, and I have been there, done that. So I am in no way above this kind of thing. You you're not going to function the way you're supposed to. You're not going to be a high performer, or you're not going to be as high a performer as you could be otherwise,
Yeah.
just because your body doesn't have what it needs.
Yeah. And I would say this because I was literally having the exact conversation about firefighters here in our area, maybe not at all the departments, but I know at least some of them work a 48/96. So
Mm-hmm.
they work for 48 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
The medical research says that if you go 24 hours without sleep, you're equivalent to a DUI drunk. Well,
Yep.
I don't even want to know what it is if you go 48 hours.
48
And
hours.
And here's the deal. We used to always rib the firefighters. Oh, you're just sitting around watching, watching TV shows in your Barca loungers. Maybe that was true in 1982. But I'm telling you, here in our area, our firefighters, our firefighters, paramedics, EMTs, they are remarkable human beings. They're working hard. And mind you, there are probably times that they get good sleep, but I think that's the exception to the rule. I think
I would
usually
agree.
that they're getting disrupted sleep when they're on duty, and uh, and they still perform at a high level.
Yeah,
However, however, there's gonna be errors because we're
there
human,
are.
right?
Yes.
There's gonna be errors, and eventually, I think it's gonna lead towards something catastrophic. It probably already has, but I'm just saying,
I think it probably does. And
yes,
the mistakes are minute and we miss them. And, maybe they wouldn't have changed the outcome of a call, right?
yeah,
And I have this conversation with first responders all the time. We can't focus on the call outcome as, whether or not it went well, but how did we do? And did the team work well together? And did we do all the things we could have slash should have done, kind of a
yeah.
thing? But if you're not sleeping and you can't function properly, that just it adds up. And then I know a lot of people think, well, I can make up for the sleep on your days off, but that's not how our bodies work. You can't make up, so to speak, for the lost sleep. So if you can get that on point as best you can, first responders can't always control it, right? Overtime, circumstances, whatnot, but be violently protective of
Yes.
bedtimes and wake up times and meal times and quality food.
Yes.
Those are the little things that we can do to help sustain ourselves in the moment and for the long term.
I think as moms and dads, there's a lot of great moms and dads out there in the first responder community. And I know as a dad, like I would sacrifice sleep and I thought I was doing the right thing. Hey, I need to be present for my family.
Mhm.
And I would say, yes, yes, you do. Uh, and your family needs you to get great sleep. So get the great sleep first. Now, if you need to miss great sleep today, if you need to take a 4 hour sleep so that you can get to the championship game,
Right.
get to the championship game, do it. And don't do that every day. You can't do that every day. You need quality sleep. You need that at the foundation. And then you can do the one-offs where you're not getting great sleep here and there, and your body's going to be able to muscle through that with the caffeine and the energy drinks. The word bad decisions popped into my mind as you were listing, you know, tequila and bad decisions. Um,
Yes.
so
Hopefully
yeah,
not that bad.
no. Definitely not while we're working, folks.
Nope.
Um, but I think that's one of the challenges that's still within our control. That's in our control is, you know what, you may miss the soccer game today. And there's going to be a soccer game next week that you know you're going to be able to get to because your schedule's a little bit different. And so get the great sleep today so that you aren't blowing up at the family. That was one of my issues.
Yeah.
I'm yelling at my kids over silly things and they're scared of dad because I'm this big guy that's raising my voice and that's scary for a little girl, especially when, for me with me having four daughters. But hmm,
And you're 100% right. I have kids. There's a lot of pressure to like be at all their things and not miss anything. But, I think about it's not just about showing up, it's about how we show up. And
yes.
if you can't show up as the parent you want to be and the parent you want them to remember they had, then you got to think about what do I need to do to be able to be that best version of myself.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing what our kids' experience of us is. And, best of intentions, right? Like, well, I didn't miss a single game that year. But if you didn't miss a single one, but you're angry or you're half asleep or you're distracted because you're on your cell phone or whatever it is, your kids see that. Like all of our kids see it. No, I don't know about yours, but mine call me out. They're not shy about it. So it's what do we need? What do we need to do? Right? Can we miss this one to get the sleep to be able to be there and make dinner when they walk in the front door and have the really engaged conversation? That's often better than showing up kind of half zombied.
Yeah. I would agree. Hey, you've already touched on a lot of these, but if you could hear at the end as well, Colleen, for folks that haven't heard your voice before, haven't heard of Ally Connect, what are the best ways for them to connect with you or your team?
Yeah. So through the website, we have a great contact us form that goes straight to the team. There's a real live human behind it, and they can direct you wherever you want. LinkedIn is a big component. And then honestly, I share my cell phone number directly with everybody. So I'm sure you'll be able to share that with the audience so that people can shoot a text or give me a call if they have questions. I'm happy to help. This is what I'm passionate about.
I love it. Well, for the listeners, I'm going to make it real easy. Go ahead and look down in the show notes, and all of those points of contact will be down there. Colleen, time is my greatest commodity. I can't make more of this stuff, and you've given me a lot of yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Wow, folks, what did you think about my conversation with Colleen? I hope you found value in it. There were so many things I appreciated that she brought to the table, from her own experiences to, and I know it's her experience, but the expanded experience through the clients that she has supported over the years as a mental health professional. And I love her passion now of, hey, how can we use this thing, AI technology? Some of you are really versed up on this. Some of you are like, yeah, I don't touch it yet. There's some really great things I think that AI technology is going to allow us to do. I see it being misused other places, maybe like different social media apps and whatnot, trying to suck us in and keep us on the screen. But for this purpose with Alli Connect, I'm just excited to hear what they're doing to connect our first responders with needed resources. Hey folks, how are Jaimie and I doing here on the podcast? We always want to hear from you. There's different ways for you to communicate back to us how we're doing. First and foremost, please follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. That will cause the next episode to come up in your dashboard. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can rate and review us or give us thumbs up. On Apple and Spotify, there's 5 stars waiting on our main page, and we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating if we've earned 5 stars, folks. If we haven't earned 5 stars, just keep them. They're your stars. Keep them. Instead, shoot me an email at chris@gravityct.com. Let us know how to make it better. Future Marriage Monday topics or guests for me to interview. Folks, we only get to live this life once. Let's go out and take care of the people in our tribes. Take care of each other. God bless.